Some Excel features hide in plain sight. They're there, but nobody ever thinks to click the button. And that's what we're looking at in this video, one of those features. We're looking at a feature that enables us to create a separate pivot table and worksheet for every item inside a pivot field. Now, people love pivot tables because they're a quick and easy way for summarizing data. For example, here I've got some data, and from that I've created this pivot table. And without writing any formulas, I've been able to include my item in the rows, my months in the columns, and then the sum of the value in the values section. Often, in the filter section at the top, we might filter by different cost centers or by different departments or different managers, and then we might have to send those out to different people or even have different views. Often, we even want to create different tabs for each of these items. So we might copy our workbook and then start filtering our pivot tables. But stop, don't do that. Don't do all that manual work. Pivot tables have a secret hidden feature called Show Report Filter Pages. And that's what we're looking at in this video. So if you're ready, let's get started. So before we use this feature, let's make sure that our pivot table is set up in the right way. So it's only the items in the filter section that we can create worksheets for. So this process is going to create a new worksheet and place a pivot table on that and filter that pivot table down to each item that's in our region section. And that's because region is in the filters area. Now, it doesn't matter how many items we have. Here I've got 5, but there could be hundreds, and this process will still run correctly. So let's try this out. I'll select a cell inside my pivot table. Then from Pivot Table Analyze, I'll come down to Options, and here we have Show Report Filter Pages. Let's click that. It's brought up the field that we want to create our pages for. If we have multiple fields in this section, we can only select one. So we can't have multiple filters happening at the same time. Then all we have to do is click OK. And look at that, after a few seconds, I've now got a sheet for North and South and East and West and Central. And I've got my original pivot table there as well. And all of these pivot tables share the same pivot cache. So if I change my data and refresh all, it will update all of the pivot tables. However, they don't share formatting or any other layouts. So if I make a change in my Central, for example, if I move Alpha to the bottom, it doesn't change any of the other pivot tables. Equally, if I change the formatting that I want to be applied, that doesn't change any of the other pivot tables. So if we've found that we've made a mistake, it's often easier to delete those additional sheets. Let's delete those. And then we can rerun this entire process. This method doesn't work with data model driven pivot tables, only standard pivot tables built on a single table. We just delete these sheets. The other thing to be aware of is that if we have any other objects, such as slicers or even pivot charts, that they are not copied across. So let's insert a pivot chart. We'll just select a standard clustered column. And now if we run this same process, you'll notice that those pivot tables are created, but those pivot charts are not copied across. So if you're thinking it'd be really nice if it did copy those elements across, well, in the next section, we're going to look at a VBA and an Office script solution that will achieve just that. Let's suggest that we want the same outcome as the Show Report Filter Pages feature, but we do want to copy all of the elements onto each worksheet. So here I've got my pivot table, I've also got a pivot chart and a slicer. So all these three things are connected to each other. If I click on my slicer, you can see that it affects my pivot table and it also affects my pivot chart. Using the method that we looked at a few moments ago, we know that these items won't be copied. Instead, let's look at a VBA solution. So in Developer and Visual Basic, I have a macro. I'm not going to go through this line by line, but if you download the example file, then the code is available in there. So I've got my pivot table selected. Under the Developer ribbon, I can come to Macros. My macro is called PivotTable WS copy. I can just click run. It then asks me which field I want to run this on, and I want to run this on the region field. So I can only select a field which is in my filter section. Then I'll click OK. Fantastic, that's run. And now for central, north, south, east, and west, I have the slicer and also that pivot chart copied across. So that's a great solution where show report filter pages doesn't do exactly what you want. So we've seen that we can copy all of the worksheet objects using a VBA macro. Can we do the same with Office scripts? Yes, we can. So in the Automate tab, you might want to click New Script, and then you can copy the code into that new script. You can find the code in the blog post that's linked in the descriptions box below. I've got mine already created, so I'll click on my script. That opens the code editor, and then I'll click Edit, just so you can see the script in there. Again, I'm not going to go through this line by line. There's my script. Now, before I run it, there is one key difference between the script and the VBA method, and that's that with VBA, it asked us which field we wanted to use. With Office scripts, it's trickier to get that user interaction, so this script runs on the first field in the filter section. We've only got one called region, so that won't affect us in this scenario. Okay, let's click run. Perfect, all of those worksheet objects are now copied across each of those different worksheets. Well, that's it. We've seen how we can create a separate worksheet for every item inside our pivot table using the Show Report Filter Pages feature. It's there, it's hiding in plain sight. Did you even know it was there? But as great as this feature is, it doesn't copy all of those worksheet objects. So if that's your scenario, then hopefully the VBA and the Office script solution have given you what you need. Now, if you want to take your Excel skills to the next level, why not check out our training academy over at exceloffthegrid.com/academy. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.